Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Rory McLennan coming to you from Glasgow, Scotland. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. Terrorists killed at least 160 people in coordinated attacks on primarily Christian districts in Plateau state in Nigeria. Many of the victims had been getting ready for church Christmas festivities. The attackers killed Reverend Solomon Gouche of the Baptist Church in Dares village, along with 9 members of his family. Hundreds of houses were also demolished by the attackers. This year, the violence has also spread to the southern region of the country, which has a Christian majority. In a news release, Plateau Governor Caleb Muftwang said that these stupid, senseless and unprovoked attacks must stop. Christian leaders think the attacks are motivated by the desire to annex Christian areas and impose Islam, because herders are finding it harder to maintain their herds due to desertification. Pope Francis reiterated his appeal for peace in the Holy Land and in Ukraine on the feast of St. Stephen, the first martyr of the Catholic Church. He also implored the intercession of the saint for the cessation of wars and for religious freedom. The Pope also expressed his solidarity with Christian communities facing discrimination and encouraged them to continue their acts of kindness toward all and to fight non-violently for justice and religious freedom. The Holy Father added that he has entrusted the prayers of the people devastated by war into the hands of St. Stephen. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israeli forces are deepening operations in southern Gaza and will not reduce the severity of the conflict, with the Air Force bombing 100 targets in a single day. Herzi Halevi, who is the Israeli Army's Chief of Staff, said the war on Hamas would continue for many months. Israeli attacks on Gaza have resulted in over 20,000 deaths and 50,000 injuries since the 7th of October. Over 1,000 people were confirmed killed as a result of Hamas's initial assault on Israel. According to the United Nations, since Israel began its invasion of Gaza 2 months ago, 164 Israeli troops have died and close to 900 have been injured. In another significant development, the United Nations has also appointed Sigrid Kaag as Senior Humanitarian Aid and Reconstruction Coordinator for Gaza after Israel revoked visas of other UN staff. Kaag, who is a former Dutch Deputy Prime Minister, is anticipated to start on January the 8th. Ukraine attacked a Russian warship in Russian-occupied Crimea, which resulted in at least 1 death. The Russian Ministry of Defense confirmed that Ukrainian missiles hit the landing ship Novocherkassk. The extent of the damage is unknown, but videos show a large fire in the port area. Ukrainian officials said that the ship was destroyed and may have been carrying weapons. Meanwhile, Russia claimed that 2 Ukrainian fighter planes involved in the attack were destroyed, but Ukraine has not confirmed this. The incident occurred after Ukraine celebrated Christmas on December the 25th, separating itself from Russian customs, in which Christmas is celebrated on January the 7th, in accordance with the Julian calendar. Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe has granted an amnesty to over 1,000 convicts and released them from jails across the country to mark Christmas. Prison Commissioner Gamini Disayanayake said over 1,000 Sri Lankans who had been imprisoned for failing to pay unpaid fines were released on Monday. The most recent pardon was granted following around 15,000 arrests made by police during a week-long anti-drug campaign supported by the military that was called off on Christmas Eve. According to a police statement, 13,666 suspects were taken into custody and roughly 1,100 addicts were placed in a military-run facility for mandatory rehabilitation. The island nation's jails are already overcrowded. As of Friday, there were around 30,000 prisoners housed in facilities built to accommodate only 11,000 prisoners. A priest in Nicaragua was held in custody for 12 hours by the dictatorship in the country for offering prayers for Bishop Rolando Alvarez at Mass on December the 24th. According to the La Prensa newspaper, Father Jader Guido, who is the second vicar of the Matagalpa Cathedral, was taken into custody after 10 a.m. Mass and was released at night time. Rolando Alvarez, who is the Bishop of Matagalpa, had been sentenced to more than 26 years in prison by the Daniel Ortega regime, and he has been incarcerated since February this year. Author Martha Patricia Molina said the Sandinista regime closely watched Nicaraguan parishes around the clock and recorded and analysed homilies. The authorities of the Chinese province of Baoding have introduced restrictions and prohibitions barring children from participating in Christmas celebrations. Officers applied severe security measures to discourage the participation of Catholics in Christmas celebrations. The Baoding authorities introduced measures like prohibiting children from participating in the Christmas Eve celebration by enforcing traffic controls and closing businesses. They further banned the display of Christmas-related objects in university residences. Vehicles were prohibited from approaching the historic Cathedral of St. Peter and Paul, and shops near the church were ordered to close. This region, which is close to the Chinese capital city Beijing, is home to many Catholics. Tragedy, including mass killings and famine, has been forced upon the people of Sudan this week, with the Joe Biden administration being accused of standing idle. Washington-based foreign policy expert Walid Fares told Fox News that Sudan's condition will not improve unless there is international intervention. He blamed Washington for being idle and vague. Reports show Russia's Wagner Group continues to mine and export Sudanese gold to finance the Kremlin's war against Ukraine. Eyewitnesses have also testified to the media that the rebel militia from the Rapid Support Forces had been spreading terror among residents and plundering valuables. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, citing the International Organization for Migration, said that about 5.3 million people have been displaced within Sudan and more than 12,000 have been killed since the conflict began on the 15th of April. New Yorkers are set to vote on a proposal to enshrine abortion into their state constitution in November next year. The provision granting abortion in the United States Constitution was taken away following the overturning of Roe v. Wade by the US Supreme Court in 2022. The existing law in New York allows abortion for up to 9 months in cases where there is an absence of fetal viability or if the abortion is deemed necessary to protect the patient's life or health. Representing the New York State Catholic Conference, Kristen Curran said that New York State should be pouring resources into helping women and families, not promoting abortion through limitless funding, advertising, and legislation. An elderly woman and 2 children were killed and later burned by suspected Allied Democratic Forces rebels affiliated with the Islamic State group in a village in western Uganda. According to officials, the militants attacked the village in Kamwenge district late on Monday, killing a 75-year-old woman and her 2 grandchildren. The attack took place in a village which was already the scene of an attack a week earlier, which was also attributed to the ADF. 10 villagers were killed in that earlier attack. The ADF is accused of carrying out jihadist assaults across the border in Ugandan territory in recent years. European countries increased security over the holiday season amid fears of potential terrorist strikes. The Vatican, Germany and Austria raised the alert during Christmas celebrations amid intelligence reports of potential terrorist attacks. Sightseeing visits were barred at Germany's landmark cathedral in the city of Cologne, and Christmas Eve worshippers faced security checks to get into midnight mass on Sunday. In Austria, security measures were tightened around Christmas markets and churches in the capital, Vienna. The Interior Minister for the German state of North Rhine-Westphalia, Herbert Reul, urged the public to exercise caution. 2023 saw a marked increase in anti-Semitism on US college campuses, especially since the start of the Israel-Hamas war in October. Student protesters faced lawsuits, congressional investigations, and threats to cut federal funding from elite universities. Jonah Cohen, who is the head of communications for the Committee for Accuracy of Middle East Reporting in America, told Fox News Digital in an interview that Americans are beginning to awaken to the presence of extremist and anti-Semitic ideologies prevailing in universities. Students at universities around the country faced hostile rhetoric and chants from their peers, such as calls for the elimination of the State of Israel. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us again next time for more. And do remember, in the meantime, you can always visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.